What if democracy is bunk? What if you were only allowed to vote because it didn't make any difference? What if no matter how you voted, the elites got to have it their way? What if one person, one vote was just a fiction created by the government to induce your compliance? What if democracy was dangerous to personal freedom? What if democracy eroded the people's understanding of natural rights and the foundations of government and instead turned government into a beauty contest? What if democracy allowed the government to do anything it wants, as long as more people bother to show up voting in favor of it than those who showed up voting to say no? What if the purpose of democracy was to convince people that they could prosper not through the creation of wealth, but through theft from others? What if the only moral way to acquire economic wealth is through real economic activity? What if the government persuaded you that you could acquire wealth through political activity? What if economic activity included all the productive and peaceful things we did? What if political activity included all the parasitical and destructive things the government does? What if governments were originally established to protect people's freedom, but always turned into political and imperialist enterprises that sought to expand their power, increase their territory, and heighten their control over the population? What if the idea that we need a government to take care of us is actually a fiction? What if our strength as individuals and our durability as a culture are contingent not on the strength of the government, but on the amount of freedom we have from the government? What if we're seeing civil unrest around the world precisely because the government is in control and out of control? What if this held true even among those protesters whose grievances involve demanding more from government? What if that's what the cocktail of big government and democracy produces? What if so-called democratic government, once it grows to a certain size, begins to soften and weaken the people? What if big government destroys people's motivations and democracy convinces them that the only motivation they need is to vote and go along with what the vote results are? What if the Republican primary we're seeing unfold isn't actually as democratic as it may appear to be? What if the results you saw from the states voting last Tuesday won't match the composition of the delegates they send to the Tampa convention this summer, because the polls aren't what count, but what counts are the secret meetings that come after the voting? What if that monster Joe Stalin was right when he said the most powerful person in the world is the guy who gets to count the votes? What if that's how we lost our republic? What if the problem with democracy is that the majority thinks it can do and regulate and acquire anything it wants? What if the greatest tyrant in history lives among us? What if that tyrant gets its way all the time, no matter what the laws are or what the Constitution says? What if that tyrant is the majority of voters? What if the majority in a democracy recognized no limits on its power? What if the government misinformed voters to justify anything the government wants to do? What if the government bribed people with the money it prints? What if it gave entitlements to the poor and tax breaks to the middle class and bailouts to the rich just to keep us all dependent on it? What if a vibrant republic requires not just the democratic process of voting, but also informed and engaged voters who understand first principles of government and the divine origin of natural rights? What if we can free ourselves from the yoke of big government through a campaign of education and information that leads to a return to first principles? What if the establishment doesn't want this? What if the government remains the same no matter who wins elections? What if, because of Ron Paul's campaign, freedom will win because he isn't just campaigning for votes, but for educating the population and winning the hearts and minds of a once free people, inspiring them to fight for their freedom once again? What if we can be free? What will it take to make that happen?